Welcome back to AM Northwest. When it comes to marketing yourself to a potential employer or even a client, a good story could be just what you need to seal the deal. Here to share how to create a personal narrative, we welcome back personal branding expert Carol Parker Walsh. Good to see you, Carol.
You too.
Explain what you mean by having a good story. How does that help you?
Well, the thing about stories is that they've been around forever, right?
Sure.
We've been telling stories and narratives to illustrate a point or to teach a lesson. And today in our society, because we're so inundated with information and there's access to everything, that in order for you to really stand out, you want to differentiate yourself by really telling your story. Something that really makes you relatable and builds a connection between you and other people. And that is so different than just your credentials or your skills or the things that you've done. When you can situate it into a story, it makes it more relatable. And you think about it, our brains learn best when we actually are engaged in experiences. When we actually do something, we learn better. And stories are the second best way to make to learn something or to make the connection, because if we can situate ourselves in the story, it's almost as if we've experienced it ourselves.
What's your story?
Well, my story that I usually use is, and we'll talk about the ways to kind of construct it, but you look for particular points in your life that were really significant, and one of mine is I had a major car accident. And in the midst of the car accident, I heard a voice that said, "Turn now." And because
right before the accident,
and at the time, on the one side there was a ravine to drop off to, or there was a side of a hill. So the options were, neither one of them looked great. But I knew if I were going straight, that if I were to hit head on, I wouldn't be here today, which is true. So I heard this voice that said, "Turn now." So I turned into oncoming traffic, and even though I was hit, I still survived. But the lesson that I got from that was hearing "turn now" reminded me, or made me think about even my life, and that those times when we're faced between two options, neither one that looks good, but you know if you stay on the course that you're on, it's not going to be a great course. So sometimes we have to listen to that voice that says make the turn, whether it is making the turn in your career, changing jobs, leaving a relationship, or moving someplace else. Sometimes the options don't seem great, but you have to listen to the voice and make the turn. And that's the message that I use with my clients, is that listen to that voice that says turn, because it could save your life.
How do you use it in job interviews, that kind of thing?
Well, I would use a different story for that, but this one definitely is my story that I use. That differentiates me from how I love to work with my clients and the work that I do.
Explains your life path.
But if you, the question that you're always asked is, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, if you can create a story that speaks to why you would want to work for this particular company, why this job or what they do at the company is so meaningful for you. For example, if maybe you're interviewing for a chocolate company and you tell the story about when you were a kid and you've got your first piece of chocolate and how amazing it made you feel, and so that's why having the opportunity to work for a company that allows other people to have that same amazing experience that you had when you had your first piece of chocolate is really endearing to you. Isn't that a great story to tell in an interview? As opposed to, well, I looked at your portfolio and your statistics look like this, and I love the opportunity. When you tell that story, it's a memorable thing because I brought you into my story. You now connect with me, and you will remember the story more than you remember facts or data or anything like that.
How do you put together your story?
Well, there's three components that I say you have to use to do your story, and one is that you want to have, you want to create your origin story, right? And we see that all the time in Marvel and DC Comics, right? All those movies, everyone has their origin story, and it really follows the components of the hero journey, which is the foundation to create a great narrative. Which is, the hero goes out, they meet a crisis, whether it's a crisis of conscience or a crisis outside of themselves that they overcome, and then they return transformed and emerge. So you want to find a story or a situation or experience in your life that really was a defining moment for you, where maybe there was a crisis, or maybe there was something amazing that really helped to transform or change you.
I love that.
Yeah. And then the next thing you do is you want to edit down, because you don't want to get lost in the details. If the story is too long,
then you'll lose people.
So you want to edit down and get to the main heart of the story. And then the final piece is that you really want to make sure that you can connect to other people. So just telling the story is one thing, but when you can say it in a way that makes you connect and that I bring you into the story with me, that makes a huge difference.
The thing about telling stories, and I've seen this like at a big public gathering where where they asked audience members to tell a story over and over. They said it needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes, it should. It
should.
Right? Because it opens the story, and usually it follows the hero's journey, right? It starts with something, you're off on an adventure, there's a crisis that peaks, and then the ending is usually the transformation and the connection, the piece that allows you to see yourself and situate yourself in that story.
And if you have a beginning, middle, and end, it keeps you focused.
It keeps you focused. It keeps you focused, but it also keeps the person engaged as well. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad you listened to your voice in your head to make that turn.
Exactly.
Wow. All right. We'll put the information on our website at katu.com.